bicycle was top of the train, just barely moving. Got to Hitchcock. The engineer got off, he sat on a bench there, and he said, I didn't think I'd ever make it. The water was putting the fire out, he couldn't keep the steam up to get his speed up. And those pictures I gave you, that's all those costly pictures.
Yes, we have some pictures of this storm.
And there's about 10,000 bales of cotton scattered all over this prairie out here, boats all over. In Texas City, they had an army camp in Texas City at the time. That was during the Mexican Revolution, in 1911, 1914, 15. The camp was all tents. They just destroyed every bit of that. Number of soldiers were drowned. They had about 4 foot of water in Texas City. Oil tanks over there floated all around, houses floated around. And out here they had a cotton yard over that where the shopping center is now. They were paying $5 and $10 a bale salvage on the cotton. They had about 10,000 bales of cotton they picked up on that prairie, brought in. Everybody was busy. This bridge used to be right out here across the byway, it floated on the other side. The lanes wasn't there then, but the whole bridge just floated across. And down here on 519, the next morning after the storm, my two brothers and one man and I walked down there. I was just 11 years old, 12, 13. And the water was just about this much the railing. You see the bridge railing was about this high. The water was about 4 foot deep down there on 519.
You were here when this influx of soldiers came after World War II, or during World War II, to be at Camp Wallace. Can you tell us about your memories of those young men that came through here?
Well, they started the camp, they started really the first week we got a 10-inch rain. Water was all over up to the highway. About 2 weeks later, we had another one about to say, well, the Army was going to move camp. They just had the engineers said they're going to close the camp. Well, the county got busy and cleaned out the bio, trying to get some drainage. They didn't have any road. They had to build a board road like to build the oil fields. And they built a temporary bridge across the bio up there to get material and stuff in. Well, it got pretty bad. The mud was about that deep. The people working, they'd have to park on the highway, and the carpenters would have to carry the toolboxes because they couldn't leave anything, somebody would steal it. They had to walk back to a mile. They started about 6 o'clock in the morning. They went to work at 7 and worked till 6. And then they'd often start going in, and we'd get busy about 6:30, all of them come by for gasoline. At about 9:30, we'd turn the lights off, close up, at 4:45 in the morning.
When the soldiers actually started coming, how did that change life around here?
Well, we had about 5 or 6 cafes. Everybody had a chicken house or any kind of a building. They rented to somebody. People were sleeping under the bridges, under the cars, under a tree, anyway. Just anyway they could settle down. And they increased their traffic around town considerable. People around all night and all day.
I understood there was a prisoner of war camp out there during the war, Camp
Yeah,
Wallace.
Camp Wallace.
Can
In
you?
fact, the captain, the head of it, lived in the little red house I had. Francis Schaefer lives there.
Oh, really?
He was from Manchester, New Hampshire. And we visited him after the war. He was a French professor at the college there at Manchester. And they also had a prisoner of war camp up at Hurrian, Texas, Calvert. Then he moved up to Calvert, up in central Texas. We went up there to visit him there. But
Do you remember what kind of, were they Japanese or German
no, we had
soldiers?
most German prisoners.
Germans?
And the rice, there was lots of rice here then. Well, these prisoners were allowed to go out and work in these rice fields and pay them a few dollars. So on Sundays, my fellows tell me, American people ride by and watch these prisoners work in the rice fields. One of the prisoners asked the guard, said, what's that? He said, well, that's just regular United States people, regular American people. He said, you mean everybody in the United States got an automobile? I said, pretty neat. He said, I'm coming back. So a lot of them did, a lot of the prisoners came back. Settled. Now, the Katina girls, and the Beltrami girls, they married soldiers. out of jail.
Chancers? Daddy. Shancer girls married a soldier that was
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Pauline Lambert married one.
Pauline, yeah.
Dorothy Burns, did she marry a soldier? Did I do that?
No, she didn't marry a
She was
soldier.
married to a soldier, that's right,
Yeah,
it
she
wasn't a,
married
okay, I stand.
Guys in the Navy.
So, but the people of Hitchcock opened their houses to.
Oh, yeah, everybody had a room there rented to
Um,
see all these young wives that come down here, get here, nothing here. When you lived over there in the good old days, and they had cots in there like a flop house for these girls, they did. They'd come down here and stay with husbands and girlfriends shipped out.
Yeah, tell us about Gaddis Vitchin. Can you tell us about the which, am I saying it right? Vitchin?
Old man,
Bitkin.
he was a real estate developer in Galveston. He started that addition out to the west end just about the time the Depression came, and it folded up. He was broke when he moved up here. Well, Gaddis was just a little boy, and he's about 15, 16.
And where do they live, Mr. Henckel?
Well, the good old days,
The present side of the good old
Good
days?
days, yes.
Uh-huh.
they had, I think, 3 girls in Gaddis. But the old man was German, and he had some cotton broking business in Galveston at the same time, and then all went, he was broke when he was up here. And then he went to work as a guard, watchman down at the dry dock later on. And then he got back in business. He started making money buying land, taught Gaddis how to do it.
Across from Cecil Henckel's house, there is an old building. And I understood that it was a barrel house, am I right?
And that was one of the original buildings my dad built over here on 3rd Street.
What was it used for?
It was used for valve material storage. There's 2 buildings built just alike. They're 50 foot long and about 30-some feet wide. One of them was a scuba shop, and the next one was, valve material in it.
What was it used for over the years? You know, what has it been used for over the years?
Well, I don't know. Cecil had it down there, and I rented out as apartments when Walter McLaughlin was out here, Lebanese. And then he moved it over there for some reason. I don't know what he did. Just moved it to get rid of it, I guess, huh?
Mhm.
But the building is pretty well shot. It's still good. All used up termites.
Who built the ice plant?
My daddy, the guy blew in here about 1922, 23, wanted to establish a bank, by the name of Davis. Well, got it started, my dad had some stock and 2 or 3 more had stock in it. About a year, he loaned all the money to his kinfolks, and the bank went broke. About the same time, a fellow named Kellogg came in here and wanted to build an ice plant. So we needed an ice plant for the vegetable ship, we needed ice. So my daddy put some stock in it. Well, the guy put the foundation down. The money he collected, he didn't pay nobody, and he skipped out. And he went to Houston and he bought a steam boiler from an old widow woman and gave her a note for $10,000 for a boiler. We never got the boiler, and they sued my dad, and Nashville took it over to Tech City and built it. And they had to pay that $10,000 note off that he signed to get clear of that stuff. Between my dad and Nestle, they built it and operated. Nestle managed it. And my dad put most of the money into it. And then after my dad died, when it was sold, I think he used to light power. Topper bought it, or used to light power, and Cecil got it from somebody there.
When I was growing up, Pop Wilson,
Yeah, Wilson was the engineer.
Academic Wilson,
Wilson and Armstrong was light engineer.
and there was only one vault, but there were a bunch of vaults in the back at one time, I guess.
Yeah, well, they had the ice manufacturing, where they made the ice.
Yeah.
And then they had the cold storage plant in the end of it. It did good as long as an operation, but eventually they just quit. mechanical refrigeration was going in about that time. And then once you use ice anymore.
It's nice to go and they get
Max
those.
Stetz was, Max Stetz,
Uh-huh.
he was ice, he worked over there. Mike David was delivering ice.
Yeah, I remember. It was nice to go and get those cold watermelons.
Ooh, I'll
Yeah.
say it was. I
Oh, they're
remember
cool
that.
watermelons.
Big watermelons.
Can you tell us about the Henck building?
Hank Building was built about 1894, somewhere along there. Mrs. Molly Hank had a business in Galveston. It was a mercantile business, and she sent Charlie and Will, her sons, up here to run this one. They sold everything, they sold clothes, women's hats, women's dresses, shoes, groceries, whatever you want.
Okay.
And
well,
Charlie Hank died, and then they liquidated the deal, closed it up.
Was there another building also that the Hinks built? Or I was a little confused.
Well, next to Hank's building, going east, was Brightmeyer's Fishing deal. And then right next to it, there used to be a little ice house and an ice cream parlor for them Otto Christians around it. And Shiro bought the building on the end. That's where the old hotel was. And he tore it down and built his store and residence on that corner.
The old hotel now. Who built the old hotel?
Taco Brothers.
Okay, and what did it look like?
It was a 3-story wooden building. I was doing the land boom when they used to run
And
it.
that's when they were getting the people from.
Bringing the people from the Midwest down here where it was freezing, down here where the sun was shining.
Okay, you told me one time the story of how the fire department began, and it was some building that burned. I was thinking you said the
There's one of my offices down there, there was a cafe there, I was doing Camp Wallace. And one Sunday afternoon, about 4 o'clock, the cafe caught fire. An old man Cotton had a shooting gallery, they had a bunch of ammunition up on the second story. That stuff was going to start shooting around, everybody got away. So we called the Galveston Fire Department for help. They ran out of gas on this side of the causeway. We called Texas City, got going to Bering out on the truck coming over, they didn't get here. But Camp Wallace had a fire department, so we called them. We didn't have any water. We had to fire something, no water. So Santa Fe had the water spout down right across the railroad there where they used to service the engines. We had no way to get it, so we finally decided to dam the ditch up and make a hole and turn the water in by that time the building was burned down. So that was the starting of the fire department.
So you determined you needed a fire department
So we
information.
determined then that we needed a fire department.
Um,
Wallace Simpson was very interested in the fire department.
Yes, and tell us about the formation of the Hitchcock Fire Department and some of the people that were involved.
Well, he came in one afternoon with one of our officers. He said, I know I can get a white truck that's been in oil field service, clean out the rig, man's gonna buy a new one, get it for $300. I said, well, go buy it. So I gave him a check for $300. We got it about 2 weeks later when he got his new rig up.
Now, you just did this on your own. There was no fire department at that time, was there?
And we formed the fire department.
Okay.
volunteer fire
Who were
department.
some of the first people like?
Well, Terrebonne, Hartley Palmer, Raymond Cruz, George Caracostas, Cleve Howard, Jack Facetta, Brother Cecil, me, Murphy Harbor. Anybody want to work? See, Terry was a mechanic, running the shop. We got the old truck, and I told him, I said, Terry wants to take the engine out and overhaul it completely. Well, whenever you got time, when you're not busy, we'll do it. So he'd come down at night and work on, pull the engine out and rebuild the complete engine. And while I was doing that, well, Carrot Costas was working on the cab and Hartley Palmer and a couple more. We worked at Bergen Oil, we got some metal, over there, made the tank, welders. And then we bought an old junk man came by one day. He used to come by, he was selling batteries and stuff. We got to talk about the fire department. He said, I got just what you boys need. That's what you got. He said, I got a brand new Chrysler 6-cylinder engine with a pump attached in a crate, never been on crate, government service. He said, you have it for $500. I said, bring it over. So I bought that. We mounted it in behind the cab, and we had the only fire truck in Galveston County that could fight grass fires and move at the same time. Because we had a separate engine run the pump and run the truck, you see. Lamarck got out here with a prairie fire one day, and they got in the middle of the prairie fire, and then after we went the truck up, we had to go out there and put the fire out and run the 30-day truck. because if they moved, they had to run through the fire, and if it stayed there, the fire was going to burn them up. So we saved that truck, with that little truck going to
That Hank building, did it burn?
Henckel building.
Yeah,
It burned at the same time that
that's what I was.
cafe right next to it.
Okay, so that, all of that had to do with the
That all did the
formation
same
of the
day.
fire.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when you decided you needed the fire department.
That's right.
I wanted to be sure.
1940, wasn't it?
43 was started, it burned about 42, because Camp Wallace started in 41, it brought the first draftees in February 41.
I remember when that wall went over.
Yeah. They had dance hall upstairs, and it was built for a bank building downstairs, and they had pool tables and a liquor store on the other side, and those boys got those pool tables out that 3-foot door before that building was going. How they did it, I don't know, but they got them out.
I didn't know that.
Pool tables, all that liquor was sitting out in the street.
Well, that's nice.
Red Town and Berkeley.
Good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shows you with the necessities there, you do it.
You knew what you had to say.
They got them out.
Let's see, the blimp base. What can you tell me about the blimp base? I'm sure.
Well, the blimp base was built about 43, it started about 43. There were 3 different contractors who had the job out there. Nathan Warfield, who built Camp Wallace, he had the general contractor. And Narragaud DeShaw had the part of it, and Vilby Brothers had the dirt work. And there's 3 separate contractors. And a man named Mr. Hayden was the general superintendent. So they brought all this old CCC camp equipment from Arkansas in, these old trucks that had the small tires on them, and they started hauling shell out there, mud shell. And they blow tires out, and during the tires were rationed, you couldn't get any. So I was patching the tires for them and doing the tire work. So I had a blackboard worker there named Willie. So Willie disappeared one morning. So I went out there, I said, Mr. Hayden, I can't fix your tires no more. He said, why? I said, well, you hired my man. He said, where is he? I said, he is right over there. He said, Willie, come over here. Yes, sir, yes, sir. You go back down there to Henckel's. I want you to fix these tires first. Well, you're not doing nothing for me, so I want you to work for him. So they paid him, and I worked him, charged him for patching the tubes, the boots, and stuff.
Approximately how long did it take from the time they started to when the blimp
About
base?
a year, it took about a year to build it.
Mhm.
And the blimps would fly around here all the time.
Yeah, you actually saw the blimps in the
Oh,
air
yeah,
then?
yeah, they fly about 50 foot in the air, 50, 100 feet up. You can see the guys in there.
Not batteries.
Okay. Well, Mr. Henckel, once again, we thank you for the nice meal, and we thank you for letting us come into your
Well,
home today.
it's a pleasure.
And we
Kathy.
probably have a lot more questions, but we've got to stop for today. Thank you again.
Anytime you want to do it, well, let's see if I have any more pictures here. I might show you. I think I showed you those two, I showed you that one.
Still got a little glasses.
Now, here's a brochure on the entire Tackord family.
Okay.
The time they were,
Yeah, I think I have this thing.
you have one of those?
I think so. Let me double check it.